Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm the Anime Top Scholar, and this is another retro anime recommendation. Hold on. There's something wrong here. The title says Modern Recommendations? That's right, guys. This is a special episode of the Retro Recommendation series, and since I've been through the early 2000s, 90s, 80s, and 70s, I decided that for one episode only, I should go through some modern shows that I would recommend to you guys as well. Now, this one is going to be a bit different to how I do my retro recommendations, because instead of just giving you guys 3 recommendations where one is really popular, one is less popular, and one is fairly unknown, I thought to myself, it would be much better if I, instead of just 3 shows, would recommend 5, and instead of recommending something that most people already talk about, I would recommend 5 shows that I literally never hear anyone talk about for one reason or another. So, strap yourselves in. Oh, and one final thing. If modern anime recommendations isn't something you're interested in, don't worry, because I will also bring back the retro recommendations. This is just a one-off special. Anyways, on to the recommendations. Up first, we have the 2012 spin-off series of Lupin the Third called The Woman Called Fujiko Mina. This 13-episode series was produced by Studio TMS Entertainment and directed by Sayo Yamamoto, who has also directed series like Michiko to Hatchin and Yuri on Ice. The synopsis goes something like this. Many people are falling prey to a suspicious new religion. Lupin III infiltrates this group, hoping to steal the treasure their leader keeps hidden. There he lays eyes on the beautiful, bewitching woman who has the leader enthralled. This is the story of how fashionable female thief Fujiko Mina first met Lupin III, the greatest thief of his generation. I've talked about The Woman Called Fujiko Mina before on this channel, in the video I did about the Lupin III series. I decided to add it to this list as well, because it just doesn't get enough attention in my opinion. Even among Lupin fans, I often feel like it gets ignored. This is probably due to it being a spin-off, and because it crashes with the canon of Part 1, though that's not exactly something unique to this version of Lupin. What I love about this show is how they decided to go for a darker and more gritty feel to Lupin. So while that does mean that some of the fun between the characters does get toned down, the result is in my opinion a more gripping story. The story of the female thief Fujiko Mina. Next up we have an odd one. Chuu Ganden, or Welcome to Inaba's Office in English, is an 11-episode TV series from 2009 that was produced by Toei Animation. This series was directed by Kenji Nakamura, who has also directed shows like Mononoke and See the Money of Soul and Possibility Control. The synopsis goes something like this. Many patients with different problems visit the psychiatric ward of Irabu General Hospital. A trapeze artist suffering from insomnia after suddenly failing his jumps, a gangster afraid of knives and sharp objects, and a businessman who has an erection 24 hours a day. They undergo counseling by Dr. Ichiro Irabu, who is the childlike son of the hospital director. His assistant is the sullen-faced, sexy nurse Mayumi. With his mysterious injections and advice that does not make sense, Dr. Irabu confuses his patients. But at the end of his unique treatments, the patients are led to digging further into their souls to find peace of mind. Oh boy, Chuu Ganden. When you look at some shows side by side, it's not always easy to tell why one became popular while another was mostly overlooked. That is not at all the case with this one. Chuu Ganden is just downright weird. It's a comedy about mental illnesses. Yes, you heard that right. Not only that, but the production is super experimental as well, using everything from traditional 2D animation to rotoscoping and even live action. So if the comedy doesn't put you off, the visuals just might. But despite all that, it's still a show that I find myself enjoying. For while I know that not everyone thinks mental illness is something that should be joked about, in Chuu Ganden it never comes across as offensive. At least not to me, but I will concede that some people might not see it the same way I do. It just felt to me like this show uses the comedy as an excuse to actually talk about these mental illnesses, and how it can affect anyone, be it due to work-related stress, family issues, or other things. That is why I enjoy this show. Up next, we have a 13-episode ONA from 2006 called Flag. ONA, for those that don't know, means Original Net Animation. This series was produced by the Answer Studio and was directed by Ryosuke Takahashi, who has also directed shows like Armored Trooper Votoms, as well as being the original creator behind a certain show called Blue Gender. He was also joined by Kazuo Terada as co-director. The synopsis goes something like this. In 20XX, a civil war broke out in a small country in Asia in spite of the dispatch of UN forces. but a picture taken by accident in the battlefield accelerates the peace process. A photograph of a flag, which became the symbol of peace. However, just before the peace agreement is finalized, the flag is stolen by an armed extremist group in order to obstruct the truce. To rescue the flag, the UN sends in Special Development Command, SDC, which is armed with a high-agility versatile weapon carrier, Havoc, along with an embedded photojournalist to record their activities. That photojournalist is Saeko Shirasu, the young camera woman who took the picture of the flag. Like I said, Flag is an original net animation that was directed by the anime veteran Ryosuke Takahashi, who's had a career that spanned from the mid-60s up until around 2012. This anime is quite unique, but probably because it was a net animation, I think a lot of people just ignored it. But this is definitely one you owe yourself to check out. Seeing the horrors of a civil war, and how it evolves to involve the wider world and international politics, all through the camera lens of a frontline journalist. It's a powerful story, and an extremely interesting premise. Not something we see too often in anime. This is probably my second favorite show on this list of recommendations, and one I would highly recommend you take a look at. The second to last recommendation is a movie from 2014 called Harmony. This movie was one of 4 films from Anime Mirai 2014, which is a young animator training project funded by the Japanese government. It was produced by Studio Rika and directed by Yasuhiro Yoshiura, who's also directed Time of Eve and Patema Inverted. The synopsis goes something like this. Every person has his or her own little world. Among the 34 bustling students of Classroom 2-1, there are many such worlds. Honjo Akio's world, my world, is filled with passionate talk about last night's anime with Yoshida, Watanabe, and other friends. It's a fun, comfortable place, but I always wonder about the world of Makina Juri, smiling and surrounded by gorgeous friends on the other side of the classroom. One day, I enter her world, but it's not as simple as it sounds. Harmony was a part of the Young Animator Training Project of 2014, so that both makes it stand out, while also explaining why it's something a lot of people don't really talk about. But don't let that fool you. This is by no means an amateur movie. It's a nicely constructed short movie that takes a look at collectivism and individualism. Interests makes us unique, but it can also make it hard to be accepted by others if your interests and the collective's interests don't really line up. I'm sure there are many people who can recognize themselves in this movie. I don't want to give away too much since it's not that long, but it is definitely a movie you should check out. The final show that I will recommend is another weird one, but it's one that I literally never hear anyone talk about, and that's the 11 episode, or 22 if you want to watch both seasons, series from 2007 called Moyashimon. This series was produced by Studio Telecom Animation Film and Shirogumi, and it was directed by Yuichiro Yano, who's also directed shows like Lupin the Third Part 5. The synopsis goes something like this. Tadayasu Sawaki and his longtime hometown friend Kei Yuki are finally away from home and ready to start university. They attend Tokyo's College of Agriculture, and the adventures start from day 1. But that's to be expected, as Tadayasu has a special ability that is conducive to adventure and glory, especially in the world of agriculture and biology. The man can see, communicate, and interact with microbes. With ambitious sake brewing upperclassmen, a sadistic postgraduate, and a clean freak colleague, things can only become more exciting for the duo. Okay, so Moyashimon is a funny one. If I had to compare Moyashimon to something, I would compare it to Cells at Work, because both of them are about very specific interests. Cells at Work is about your body, and Moyashimon is about microbes and their effect on food and drinks like sake, fermentation, and things like that. It is mostly a light-hearted comedy, but it does provide a lot of interesting information along the way. Moyashimon is one of those shows that I went into completely blind and with no expectations, and what I ended up watching was a decently funny and very interesting show. I'm not gonna say that it's for everyone, but if you enjoyed Cells at Work, I would also check this one out. So those are the 5 modern shows that I wanted to recommend to you guys. Hopefully you found something interesting on this list of fairly obscure modern anime. I wasn't really planning on making a modern recommendations video, but it kind of ended up working out as a way to say that I'm gonna do another round of retro recommendations, since the last round was so well received. But let me know what you thought about this format with 5 shows instead of just 3. Because if you guys prefer this style, then I can try to do my next round of retro recommendations with this format. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more anime related content from the Anime Top Scholar. Also, leave a comment letting me know if you've heard of or watched any of the anime I recommended in this video, as well as just any feedback you have for my videos. So, Until next time, peace.